Well, hello there. I'm David, and I'm the host of In the Growth Space. It's really great to have you here with me today. Now, if you're new to the podcast, thanks for spending time with me today. If you're not subscribed, I'd like to invite you to go do that on your podcast app so you don't miss an episode. Now, here on the show, I talk about growth and talk with leaders who've gone on their own growth journey or who can give us insights on their own growth journey. Today, we're talking with Dr. Heather Browne on conscious communication. You know, it's a fascinating conversation that I had, and Heather brings up some really good tips and strategies that can help us all. But let me first tell you a little bit about her. So, Dr. Heather Browne helps people recognize the power of communication. It's one of our most important skills that we have, and yet we don't consider our understanding, approach, belief, and therefore miss our possibilities. Living with a paranoid schizophrenic mother gave Dr. Heather a unique and powerful awareness that no one has the same reality, though we believe we do. Utilizing this revolutionary awareness has allowed her to transform communication within self and within all other types of relationships. This is the hidden key to acceptance, and this is her mission to share. As a relationship expert, Dr. Heather has worked with thousands of individuals and couples. She is published in hundreds of journals, has an active YouTube channel, has been featured on ABC 7 News, was the relationship expert on KDOC Daybreak Orange County, and is published in Inc., Toronto Sun, Thriving Family Magazine, Light Plus Life, and Psychology Today. She is a regular guest blogger for both Links for Shrinks and for marriage-friendly therapists. So without further delay, here's my conversation with Dr. Heather Browne. Well, hello, Heather. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
It's so good. You know, when we talked originally, we just had this this insight on communication, and I know that you talk a lot about conscious communication. Tell us a little bit about like what that is, and why is that really important for us as leaders?
Well, I think it's interesting that we all talk a lot, but we don't really think about what we're saying until it comes out of our mouth a lot of times, unless you're doing a presentation or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's so many times where people will want to pull back and retract on what they've said, or they realize, gosh, I shouldn't have had that conversation then. It wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
I didn't respect your way. So there's a place of thinking about what is it you're trying to convey? Why are you conveying it? And is this the best time? And is this the best way? Not just because I want to talk, but the person I'm talking to, are they open? Are they accessible? Is this a time where they can? And I don't think we do that very well.
Yeah, you know, and just even thinking about what you just shared there, it's like we have to begin with the end in mind. And so understand, look, this is what we want to accomplish out of this conversation and this communication. Is the person that I am going to speak with ready to hear what I want to say? Is this a good time? Is it not? So I think that's really a good awareness to be able to be aware of, you know, timing and those kinds of things.
Well, and do you both want the same outcome?
Yeah, right.
Because if you don't, it might not be the right time to start talking about it and say, you know, well, I'm wanting to resolve this and end up buying the car at the end of today. So if you're completely not ready yet, let's not start talking. Let's do some more research, or let's go over those questions that you have, or those concerns that you have. It would allow people to realize it's up to you to decide where you want to go. But if you want to go somewhere, you got to make certain you start the right place to end up there.
Right.
A lot of navigation and communication.
Yeah, there is. Well, and I love that you were the navigation, because when we think about like a GPS system, a lot of people don't realize this. They start with the end point and then map their way back. And so I think in a lot of ways, like what you're saying about being aware of, and having conscious communication, we need to start with that end in mind and then kind of work our way back and really just have an overall awareness of where we want to go.
I agree. And I think there's a second piece too, which is being conscious of what the relationship is.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we need to discuss this project.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to keep in mind that you're my employee and you're valuable to me.
Yeah.
A lot of times we make the conversation more important than the relationship. That's very problematic. A lot of injury happens there. That's very unnecessary.
Oh, yeah, for sure. What are some of the ways that we can really do this well as leaders? How can we really like be a conscious communicator? Do you have some steps or some things for us to think about?
I do.
Awesome.
The first one is to ask yourself, why am I even wanting to have this conversation? What is my end goal?
Yeah.
And if it's not clear, you just need to take a little bit more time to figure out where it is you do want to end up.
Yeah.
So you get close. Then another question is, of course, going to be, is this the right time to have this conversation? You want to ask the person, I've got an important conversation about our sales record. When do you have a half hour to go over it?
Yeah.
So that they know that they're about to step into a conversation. This is one that people don't think about, but I, with my work, bring it up all the time. Is this conversation going to bless the other person or benefit them?
Yeah.
If it doesn't, you're not presenting it in the right way. It's either an attack, it's a judgment, it's not necessary information. And then another one is, are you sure it's true?
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're not, you want to be clear about that. I overheard something in the office. I have no idea if it's true or not, but I was concerned about it. What are your thoughts about blah, blah, blah? So many times we go off what we believe is reality, and we're really off. And as soon as I think if I think, oh, this podcast is going to go great, then I'm going to create a more enjoyable experience because I think you're going to enjoy me. If I go in and think, oh, he's going to think I'm an idiot, you just shook your head sideways. I might now say, oh my gosh, he doesn't like me.
No, so I'm just thinking,
we go off our perception.
Yeah.
So why not decide this is going to go well? Absolutely. We're mature adults. We're going to end up where we want to go, because then when you've got the little subtle cues, you work with it instead of against it.
So true. Gosh, this is really fascinating because, I was actually just talking with, or had a session with my emerging leaders this morning before we recorded. And one of the things that I talked about is having the belief that things are possible and having the belief that things will go well. And so I think one of the things I hear you saying is having the attitude, the right frame of mind to be able to go into that conversation, recognizing that we're going to take it where it needs to go and where we both want it to go.
Well, and does it benefit you to think this is going to be a horrible conversation?
Yeah, no, yeah.
There's no way you want to buy my package. Like, that's just not a helpful thought to yourself.
Exactly.
So they might end up not buying.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you go in with the idea of, I love my product and I'm going to share with you all the reasons why I see this benefits you, then you're going to have known you did the best you could do. I just don't understand why we would want to go into a conversation fearful, scared, worried, concerned. It just doesn't benefit you.
Right. Well, and I think that so I'll come back to that here in a second, but because this is great because there's a whole bunch of different routes I wanted to go down. But so we need to kind of know why we're having the conversation. We need to make sure, is it the right time? We ask ourselves, is it the right time? Is it going to benefit the other person? And is what we're going to talk about, is it true? And are we sure that it's true?
And then there's one more.
Yeah. What else?
Are you open to their opinion?
Oh yeah, open.
If you're not open, let them know you're lecturing because you're lecturing.
Yeah, right.
But then you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I think my idea is the only idea and not care about their viewpoints, their thoughts, their feelings, their experience? You might not change your outcome, but knowing I'm having a hard time with this is good information to know about someone you work with or a partner or what have you. So you want to make certain you're open to how they take it and what they need from you.
Well, and it to me, that even just sounds like it requires an element of emotional intelligence within me, right? To be able to make sure that I am open and then asking myself that question, well, what, like if I'm not open and if I am just lecturing, well, why am I doing that? And what's triggering that within me? Just being aware of those things that are going on within me.
And it's great to ask yourself that, because at times that's the case. And then you do want to look at yourself. I know every once in a while, it's not very often, but every once in a while, I'll go into a place where like, I just want to feel sorry for myself.
Sure.
And so I'll say to myself, you just want to feel sorry for yourself right now, don't you? And I'm like, yeah.
Yes, I do.
And then I'll do it for like a minute. And then I'll say, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But if I didn't get the clarity of what was my truth, then I can't overcome it in a way that really helps me, because I just keep mulling through feeling sorry for myself. And we can do that easily. So asking yourself, like, why am I doing it this way? Does it need to be this way? Is there a way I could do this that would serve me better than what I'm doing? There's endless possibilities, because now is now, and everything that we have lived has taken us to this point. And everything beyond is up to us to decide what we create right now. So let's do some awesome things we haven't done yet. Let's try some things we haven't done yet. Let's let today be active and vital, and we'll learn a ton.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. What do you see? Like, I know you have a private practice where you actually do therapy, and as people come to you to kind of work on this, what do you see are some of the sticking points? Like, where do people get tripped up in having these conscious conversations?
Believing that other people have the same thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and actions as they do. And if you think about it, it's so foolish. How would you ever know how I truly think or feel? There's no way you can. And even if you say, I totally understand, do you? I'll never know. I can't crawl into your body and understand how you think or feel. So the belief that we're supposed to completely understand the other and experience things the same way, and we will believe things the same way, it's just kind of silly, that we even do that, but we all do. Believing our way is right and the other person's way is wrong.
Yeah. It's that polarization, right? And I think that's really good. So one of the things I know that you talk about a lot is communicating difficult truths. And I know that oftentimes I will talk with our emerging leaders and even some of our advancing leaders as well, is the ability to have what I call speak straight conversations. And all that is just being able to move a situation forward. But it often requires us to be uncomfortable, because we're going to communicate something that's difficult. So in your view, and so how are some of the ways, or what are some of the ways I should say, that we can communicate those difficult truths?
I think it's important first to make certain that the person is available. I have two things that I suggest. One is, do I have permission to sharpen you? Or I'd like to share something, but I need you to be able to receive it with love. You wait for a yes.
Okay.
Because then you're going to share something that's your experience that you don't enjoy or appreciate or want that's going on with the other. But if the person can take it as, I'm trying to help, I'm trying to assist, this could benefit, then it doesn't feel like a judgment or an attack. There's also the place to say, this is just my experience. But the reason I'm bringing this up is I'd like us to be able to do this better. And I think we can. And we're not there yet. So I'm kind of excited about this resistance that we're having, kind of excited about this uncomfortableness, because it also means we're about to grow. We're about to change. We're going to learn how to communicate better than we did 5 minutes ago once we figure out how to be uncomfortable together.
Yeah.
Are you in?
Yeah.
And most people will say, yeah. And then you help each other through the awkwardness. But if they know, I care about you, I care about your experience, we can be better than this. Every time that something doesn't go well, it's a massive opportunity to grow and learn.
Oh boy, I couldn't agree more. And I love the way that you framed that, because as you present the situation, you're like, hey, look, I know we can do better, but it's coming at it from a positive perspective, and a perspective that we do want to grow, and we want our relationship to grow and to be better than it is right now. And yeah, I love that. I love that. One of the things I know that in just preparing for this conversation, I know that you're called the Reframe Queen. And so I wanted to kind of dive into that for a second, because as you were just talking about you really were reframing what I think sometimes happens in a difficult conversation. You're reframing it to a positive where we both are going to benefit and we're going to move our relationship forward. So how did you get the Reframe Queen label?
It was from Psychology Today.
Okay.
And I was in a group of 12 therapists where we would support each other.
Yeah.
And I would say so often, well, let's look at the other side, or let's tweak this.
Yeah.
And what they said is, Heather, one of your gifts is you constantly reframe things. And they've started to call me the Reframe Queen.
I love it.
But as I looked at it, I do, because everything is both. It's broken, or there's a solution. It's an argument, there's an answer. It's frustrating, there's a desire for relief. So everything is always both. And it just depends which way you look at it. I love resistance. I love resistance, because I say, oh, awesome. You want something right now. Great. Help me figure out what it is, because I don't know. And I want to give it to you, because once you have it, we're going to run with this. So there's a way to realize wherever there's a challenge, wherever there's a problem, you just haven't yet figured out the answer or the solution.
Yeah.
And that is like such fertile soil. Growing pains are painful and they hurt. But what I tell people is, oh, this is great, because it means you no longer fit in this mental construct, just like your body no longer fits. And so it needs to stretch and grow. You no longer fit in this way of thinking or being. So you're growing. And once you expand out of this, you're going to be in this bigger way of experiencing life or experiencing thought. So going through those hard places, as long as you allow yourself to go through them, gives you an incredible opportunity beyond what you know. Yeah. And that to me is the excitement of life.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, you can just tell your excitement and your joy of life is just oozing out of you, and I love that. I really do. And I think that so oftentimes we forget that we can reframe things, and we can look at things from a different perspective, and know that, look, we're just about ready to break through here. This isn't an either or, but this is a both and, or a yes and. And
when it's the most tense is when you're right there.
Oh,
because
good.
There's so much at risk. And so when it's really tight, that's the time to say, oh, we're about there, it's about to pop. And then let it pop. So you get to that place where you can have the celebration. Yeah.
That's so good. That is so good. What do you recommend for leaders who typically haven't had these kinds of conversations and haven't really been able to pick up the skill of reframing? How do you help them to kind of take the first step?
There's a great question to ask yourself, which is, could there be any other way? Could there be any other outcome? I'm a widow, and when my husband and I would get into a place where we were having a discussion, and I would have a belief that something was the way it was, he'd say, well, could there be any other possibility for this situation? And I'm a smart woman, so I'd say yes. But even if it was what I thought, giving myself that little moment to realize it could be something other than what I know opened me up. Okay. And so leaders, a lot of time, I find, get stuck, and it has to be their way because they're comfortable with it, or this is what they know. Yeah. And it's really important to realize you have a team because they're going to come with different knowledge, different awareness. And so you want to stay open. You want to find out, is there something that I've missed here? Is there something I'm not aware of that you think it's important for me to be aware of? And it doesn't mean it will always take you to a place where you apply that, but that's okay. You want your team to know what you shared with me is valuable, and I will consider everything. Yeah. Well, and because that's how they then benefit you, and you change also because of them.
Right. And to me, what I hear you saying too is at the heart of this, it's really being willing to remain curious, and to remain curious about ourselves, them, and how we can grow together.
100%. Well, it's today. So we've got a lot of time ahead of us, hopefully. And we're not there yet. So there's a ton we don't know. And I would hope we'd stay curious to the last breath that we breathe, because there's a reason we're here, and there's a whole lot we can do with the time that we are here if we decide every single person in this world has something to offer to us that we don't know, as do we for them. And then people become valuable, and thoughts become valuable, and experiences become valuable, whether they align with ours or not. They're still here.
Yeah. I think that's so important, Heather. You know, when we think about having different people on our team, different perspectives, and understanding that each one of those is so valuable and so needed on the team, because we all have blind spots. And so having other people's perspectives on our team is going to help us to avoid those blind spots. And so I think that's so good. You said something earlier that I wanted to come back to for just a second, because I think it's really important. You talked about really, if we're willing to walk through that, maybe that discomfort place, to allow ourselves to grow, because I know that too often leaders, everybody tends to not want to move into that, what I call the growth space. It's that uncomfortable place where I've never been before. How do you, as you work with leaders, how do you move them past that? How do you give them the desire to get past that, and maybe even a little, push to get through that?
Well, there's probably two parts that pop into my head most. First is, if you are uncomfortable, there's something there that you don't know, that you know that you don't know it. Yeah. So if you know you're lacking something, or not understanding something, or not applying something, and you're not sure it's right, why would you not want to know that? And then the second, as I say, it's really important for you to realize that you get to pace this. So even though you might not be comfortable here, or there might be something you're about to uncover that's important for you to figure out, you get to decide how quickly and how much you step in, because you're the leader. So you're going to be able to do this at your ability. And if you need to stop, you stop. You don't have to
Sure.
figure this out in one day. And so I say, this is part of the reason why you're the leader,
Yeah.
because you're good at figuring out how do you apply things strategically and how do you get the different parts to work. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're not sure about that, great. But let's explore it a little bit to find out what you do know. And we'll
Mm.
also find out what you don't know
Right. Right.
yet. But it's always a yet. Like this
Yeah.
opportunity came to give you something more. There's a gentleman I work with, and he's the CEO for an important company, and he got a sales report back from one aspect of his company, and it was at 5%. And the sales manager was really scared
Yeah.
because she thought she was going to be ripped apart. But I know the guy really well. And I said, oh, I bet that talk was fascinating. And she said, what did he say? And I said, I know exactly what he said. And she said, what? And he said, oh my gosh, we can be 95% better. This is fantastic.
That's great.
But that's the
Yeah.
truth. That's the
Yeah.
truth. Anything you do not yet know is keeping you from where you can eventually be.
Yeah.
Do you not want to be better?
I love
If you're
that.
uncertain, there's something to learn.
So good. That is so good. And, quite honestly, I think that is the power of having coaches in your life, having an inner circle, having in a board of directors. All of those things help us to grow and to keep us moving in a direction that we want to go, and to get better, and just to keep growing. I love that. Well, I know that we don't have a lot of time left here, Heather, but I know that one of the things that I wanted to talk with you about is that you have a course that is coming out right about the time that our podcast airs. And I was really excited to hear the title of it, and it's called Speaking with the Heart. And I'd love for you just to kind of share a little bit about that course, like who can benefit from it, and what it's all about, because I think it's really cool.
Oh, I would love to. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's going to be an online program. It's going to be done through Zoom. And my viewpoint was I want to share with people to have a deeper understanding of how phenomenal communication is. We all communicate all the time, but are we using this effectively? And do we really look at it effectively? And then do a little bit of diving within ourselves to where are some of the places we struggle? Where do we hide? Where do we push back? Why? Why do we have some of these belief systems that we have? And then, as we've talked about, how do you figure out where you want a conversation to go so that you can walk through some of these difficult places together with compassion, with understanding, with respect? And so it's a program that's designed really for anyone who wants to improve in their communication skills and in their personal awareness of how they communicate. It can be a couple, it can be an employer, it can be family, but it's a program to really explore what communication is and how do you allow yourself to keep your heart open and full as you go into these conversations to have a better outcome.
No, I love that. And I was going to ask you, like, where does the heart come in? And because that I think is something that is really, really important. And so you answered that. And I think too often in at least in the business world, we forget that we're all human beings. We all have a human heartbeat, right? And so we have desires, we have wants, we have visions and dreams. And so as we communicate, we need to take that into consideration.
Well, it's the wealth of where we resolve situations. Part of it is cerebral, of course, and intellect and skill and talent. But if you don't tap into passion, if you don't tap into character, if you don't tap into desire, it's just not as enjoyable. So you want to make certain that as you're communicating, you're loving on you and you're allowing the other person to love on themselves, and you're learning how to love each other in the ways that you communicate. When I share my experience, it's important I'm not negating yours.
Right.
We don't have to be fighting as long as we both can respect the fact that we have our own thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, and we're just trying to learn, how do we do this dance together? Because communication is a beautiful dance.
I love that you say that, because it is. It's just being able to go together and not fighting each other, but going together. I love that. Love that metaphor. That's really, really cool. Well, I know that you are also working on a book, and I know that it's not out yet, it's not done yet, but you're working on it. Any little glimpses of what it's going to be about, so that we can be on the lookout for it?
100% on couples communication. So I've been a therapist for 27 years.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of information on the pitfalls that happen in couples communication and where we miss out on opportunities. People have asked me for years, where's your book? And so I thought, it's time.
Yeah.
So it's on couples communication, and I have it mapped out to finish it by the end of the year. And then I look into the publication process. So 2023, it's going to be out.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely be looking forward to that, because I know that many of our listeners, there are couples in our audience. And so if you want to get better at that communication with a couple, I know that'll be just an amazing read and some great information. Dr. Heather Browne, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you just sharing with us some principles of communication that will help us get better, that will help us grow and really move into that growth space with our communication. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I am so impressed with how lovely you are with the people in your community and how much you really care about them. So I was excited to be invited. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Heather. Yeah, thank you so much. Well, I really loved that conversation with Dr. Heather Browne. I have some great takeaways too, because as a communicator, being a conscious communicator means that we've got to ask questions about having a conversation. And I think really one of the takeaways I have is just being very intentional with our communications and asking those questions. Why are we having this conversation? Is it the right time? Is it going to benefit the other person? Is what I understand true? Am I sure? And am I open to their opinion? I really loved that particular question, because sometimes we're locked in on the way we see things. And so getting curious about how other people see things and how others view a situation is really important. And I loved what she said about a challenge or problem. Wherever there's a challenge or problem, it just means that you haven't yet figured out the solution. So it's an opportunity. And by reframing challenges and problems, it gives us the opportunity to look at things differently and really find a solution. So reframing situations makes all the difference in our communication, and it makes all of the difference in our conversations and problem solving as well. And I think just when we ask those questions, could there be another outcome? What might be another possibility? And when we're open to what maybe we missed, we're gonna discover some things, and we're gonna also recognize that different perspectives are really valuable, because we all have blind spots, so we need to be open to them. Well, I hope that this conversation with Dr. Browne has really helped to inspire you to become a conscious communicator, being really aware of your communication. And I hope it's given you some tips and some tools to be able to communicate better. Now, one of the things that Dr. Browne's done is that she has provided a free gift to all of our listeners, and it's called 3 Ways to Stop a Fight. And if you go to the show notes, you'll see the link so that you can download that free PDF. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We have some great guests coming up and some great conversations. So until then, stay in that growth space and be well.